So, common question I get is the relationship between your weight and handstand, or it's more likely phrased in the realm of, am I too heavy to do a handstand? Should I lose weight before I start trying to do handstands? It's a common question, and I think it's more a matter of mindset or kind of misunderstanding of the technique. So, I'm not saying that being lighter isn't an advantage. It is if you look at the body types of gymnasts and circus hand balancers. Yes, they're light because a lot of the skills are easier to learn if you're as light as possible. And if we're talking about upper body skills like handstands, then especially being as light as possible in your legs. But I'm not talking about necessarily becoming a professional gymnast or circus performer. I'm talking about just learning the skill for your own personal benefit. And honestly, the weight has very little to do with it if you understand the technique. And that's it all comes down to technique, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't appreciate and don't understand as well as they'd like. They want to say like, oh, I'm 100 kilos, it's so much stress on my wrist. Is it? It shouldn't be, but you have to learn to do it the right way. So one factor is that generally people who are bigger are statistically less mobile. So chances are if you're bigger, you might be putting less work into your mobility training, which of course will have an impact specifically in the wrist. But it's more so than that. It's the misunderstanding of the alignment. And again, people who are bigger, they may have a tendency to use more of their strength, which puts them in a worse alignment, which in turn compounds and puts more stress on the body. So the question of does how heavy you are matter in your handstand? In your handstand, no, if you understand the vertical line of force. It's like this idea that I can walk for hours, right? And it's not because my legs are strong, it's because I understand the verticalization of my force vectors, and in doing so, I can use the bone structure to hold me up. So I can walk for hours with very little body tension and not expending a whole lot of energy. So there's going to be some similarities in the handstand where if you understand it's not only physical, but it's the mindset as well. But if you understand how to align your body and how to put yourself in a position where you're using physically less effort, it makes it feel lighter. And this idea of lighter has very little to do with how heavy you are. It's about how you align and how you carry yourself. I can stand with my knees bent and I can't stand like that as long because I'm using more muscular force. And then obviously if I were to weigh whatever 50 or 100 pounds more, so let's say I put 100 pounds on my back, I could still stand for a long time. It would, of course, be more difficult, but let's say I bent forward, or let's say I bent my knees, that would increase the difficulty because now my alignment is not one that prioritizes bone structure. Now, of course, that's a weight on my back. It's going to be different. I'll be able to stand longer if that 100 pounds that I gained were evenly distributed on my body. But still, the point is that you have to learn how to align yourself. And if you do so, the weight means very little. And you can look at these old-time strongmen and bodybuilders who didn't even have a straight handstand, right? Because it's not about that. But they were able to do handstands at a pretty big size, and they were able to continue doing that for a long time throughout their careers. So, why? Because the verticalization of force, right? If you understand where to put the weight on the hand and how to keep the arms vertical, the shoulders on top of the hands, then you can make the position lighter. And in doing so, it doesn't really matter how much you weigh. Now, that's for a handstand related skill, right? So a handstand is vertical. Let's say we get into things like press handstand, or planche is a better example. So in a handstand, if you have the right technique, you can be pretty much as heavy as you want. Obviously, if you're a beginner and you're just learning handstands, the lighter you are, the easier it's going to be, because you do have to build some shoulder strength and stability in your upper body to hold yourself up. If you weigh more, it's going to take longer to build that stability. So I'm not saying don't lose weight. I'm just saying that if you feel that you have to lose weight before you start your handstand practice, you're in the wrong mindset. Like, start doing what it is you want to do. Obviously, if you are overweight and you just throw yourself onto your hands, yeah, there's more risk there. So you have to be methodical with the progressions. You have to take your time into learning and acclimating. But that's for the handstand, right? So let's get into a planche. A planche is a horizontal skill, so it's not a vertical line of force, it's multiple horizontal lines of force. So planche is going to be directly relative to your body proportions and, of course, how much you weigh. So, a circus acrobat who is 5 foot 4 inches and weighs, 130 pounds is going to have a much easier time learning a planche compared to, a weightlifter who weighs whatever, over 200 pounds and has thick legs and is taller. That's just the physics of it, because the planche is directly related to your body type and weight and proportions, whereas the handstand, theoretically, they could both learn it in more or less the same amount of time, right? But it is something you have to consider for these different kind of skills. Press handstand, especially Stalder press, has both vertical and horizontal elements. So it's like the more flexible you are and the better you understand how to keep the technique as vertical as possible, the weight has less to do with it, but the more horizontal you are, the more force is going to multiply onto your joints. So long story short, it doesn't matter how much you weigh. What matters more is how you hold yourself, how you understand the technique, how you learn, your mindset, right? Again, a lot of people think of the handstand as a strength move, and that's why they make it so hard. That's why later they complain about the wrist and their elbows and the shoulders, is because you're treating it as strength and not technique, and the technique comes from the strength. It's like the same idea. When I'm learning to walk, I'm trying to learn to walk as efficiently as possible. I'm not trying to walk to get my legs stronger. I'm going to do squats or whatever, or lunges, or walk in a different way that's specifically inefficient to get my legs stronger. But if I'm just learning to stand and walk, I want to learn it in a way that allows me to stand for a long time, for many hours on end. And in turn, I want to learn this efficiency. I want to learn how to hold myself so I'm not putting additional force on my body. And I want to learn how to hold myself so that the weight doesn't matter, so that if I were to get the Wolverine surgery and I got an adamantium plated skeleton overnight that put 100 extra pounds on my body, obviously it's going to take some time to build up strength to be able to do the same movements that I'm doing. But this idea that understanding bone structure, basic movements like walking or handstand perhaps, shouldn't make a difference. And just to exercise another example of this, there is a circus trick you'll see. A few people I've seen do it. I haven't tried it myself. If you watch hand balancers like Dan Lilliard, Mikhail Christensen is another one. I've seen a few people do this trick where they have someone koala on their back, like hold onto their back, and they press into a one-arm handstand. So they're essentially, doing a one-arm handstand with an extra 50 kilos. And does it take more strength to do it that way? Yeah, of course. But it's the verticalization of force that allows them to still hold a decent position and still be able to balance on one arm, even though they have so much weight added, because they're using the technique in understanding how to place themselves vertically, so that they're using a lot of muscle to hold themselves, but they're using still mainly the bone structure to provide that support. And that's what I'm trying to get at, is you are not too heavy to do a handstand. You may take you longer to learn if you're a beginner. You may have to put a little bit of extra work into wrist mobility or shoulder mobility to get a better position, but you're not too heavy to learn to do a handstand. You just have to understand the technique. Yes, losing weight might help. If that's what you want to do long term and you want to get to a really high level of handstand, it may benefit you to lose weight. It may benefit you to lose weight in your legs. That's just the reality of it, but maybe you want to do other things. But still, just to understand the technique and the verticalization of the force will make the weight a much smaller factor than what you think it is. So, to conclude, if you think you're too heavy to do a handstand, you're not. It is an advantage to be lighter, but that should not deter you from trying to learn the skill. And again, don't think that you have to lose weight before you're ready to do this skill. It's not a good mindset to have. Like if you go too deep in that mindset, you'll never be ready. So just try the thing, do it in a way that's safe for your current level of ability. And if you feel that you want to lose weight as part of your own physical journey or to improve the skills, then continue with that. Continue doing the lifestyle changes and the training that you need to do to continue losing weight, but you can still be training the skills that you want at the same time. It doesn't have to be this mutually exclusive thing like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and then I'm going to get to handstands. But if handstands were what you wanted to do in the first place, just do the handstands and then do the work to lose the 20 pounds. And then you can do both of those things at the same time, and you'll probably enjoy yourself a lot more. And then you'll probably see some improvement in your handstands, or like your press handstands or your planches or handstand push-ups, whatever, as you lose the weight. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the matter. As always, there's no clear answer, but you are not too heavy to do a handstand. If you want to do it, just do it. That goes for more than just handstands. But also, just to keep in mind some of the different physical arts, handstand is unique because there's no impact, because it's static. So let's say, for example, because I teach a lot of acrobatics and tumbling, that's going to follow a little bit of a different pathway. So same thing. A lot of people are going to think, oh, I have to be light for that. No, you don't. You can do a lot of the skills at a variety of different weights. The issue is that handstand is very technical. So if you have the technique, the strength doesn't really matter and the weight doesn't really matter in terms of acrobatics, because there's impact, because we're working with multiples of body weight in force. It makes a bigger difference. So not saying that you can't learn to do flips and to do the acrobatics if you're heavier, but what I am saying is that you're going to have to be stronger to make it work, because the heavier you are, there is much more impact, and you do have to have the physicality to be able to handle it. So that's just a thought for a different kind of perspective, right? So same idea. If you're big, you want to learn to flip, that's fine. That's cool. But there's going to be more advantage to losing weight for that kind of movement style and that kind of physical discipline compared to something like handstands that is static, that is very heavily dependent on technique and position. And the force that we're using is not a multiple of your body weight, it's just your body weight. So as always, just something to keep in mind. Hopefully I've clarified a couple things for you. If you watched this whole video, I appreciate you listening to me rant. If you want to support what I'm doing financially, that's always appreciated because I do this for a living. So below you can find my handstand ebook. You can find some of my Vimeo paid videos. You can join my online training group where we work on a different topic every month. I offer one-on-one online coaching, and also what I've been doing now is online workshops via Zoom. So currently I'm not doing any traveling for a little bit. I'm going to start up again once things die down, once things get a bit more calm. But I am offering Zoom workshops every week on different topics. They're very reasonably priced, and I keep the group sizes limited to a maximum of 10 to make sure that we can get some good question and answer going, and to make sure that I can give people some individual feedback. So if you like what I'm doing, like, share, subscribe, thumbs up. And if you want to support me financially, those are some options as well. So thanks guys for watching the video. Let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel, and I'll see you next time.